Thank you so much. I'm really excited. I will try to talk slowly, but I just went to the Ely Cafe and had 3 espresso, 1 Ely and 2 Honduras, and then 2 macaroons. So very excited right now. Plus 2 Gusti gelato on the way to the airport should make this a special trip to Milan. Wanted to just talk about embracing the future. So today, the concept of the robo-advisor has very polarizing responses, right? Some people are very frustrated by them. They're trying to steal your business. Some people say they're taking a component of what advisors do that they don't like doing. My father is an IFA, or an advisor, in New Jersey. He manages about $70 million in mutual funds. And he sees both positives and negatives. He's like, oh, I don't have time to manage the money anymore, but also the only thing he liked doing was managing the money. Now he just does paperwork. And so he's kind of seeing both sides of this. Does he partner with a robo-advisor? What does he see? But at the end of the day, robo-advice kind of is just the one aspect of what's coming, of new technologies. It could be a good thing, or it could be something that makes us better. And so First Trust is an exchange-traded fund sponsor. You'll see how we could fit into a competitive strategy, to a robo strategy, to just a simple investment in next level technologies, but just to set the stage for how amazing the world has become. We wanted to just kind of provide the backbone for what are exponential technologies and why have they made our world so great. Who are we to talk about it? Very briefly, we're 126 billion as of the end of June, up and down depending on the day, as the FANG stocks tend to be some higher level holdings of ours. From a thematics perspective, we've been doing thematic ETF investing for over 15 years. And our biggest ETF is the Dow Jones Internet ETF. It has Facebook, Amazon, Netflix, and Google as some of its top holdings. It's almost 10 billion, and it was the #1 performing ETF over the last decade in the United States. Outside of that, we do cybersecurity and biotech and cloud computing and blockchain and robotics. And so thematic investing has always been at the heart of what we believe is next. And since the dawn of man, we believe 2 macro themes continue to be true. People continue to live longer, both in general and because of the other macro theme, which is human beings innovate. No matter what's in front of them, no matter the obstacles, whether they be wars or Brexits or Donald Trump, it doesn't matter. We're going to innovate into the future. So to provide a quick background, Warren Buffett was speaking last year at Goldman Sachs Small Business Initiatives, and he said, "This is amazing. Everyone today, especially everyone in this room, lives better in every category, whether it's running water, toilets, air conditioning, clothing, food, entertainment, healthcare, you name it. We all live better than John D. Rockefeller did, the richest man in history, the year Warren Buffett was born." That's one lifetime. Warren Buffett's still alive. The year he was born, John D. Rockefeller likely had more money than anyone in the history of the world, and we live better than he did. You know what he did for fun? He got in one of those original cars. He had to wear goggles, and he drove 12 miles an hour. Maybe what's that? 6 kilometers an hour, and just drove around in a square. That's his Netflix or binge watching. It's John D. Rockefeller, right? We get Stranger Things and all sorts of cool stuff. So how did this happen? It's because the rate of change changed. It became exponential, right? So how do we show this in 2 ways? And there's 3 pitfalls to thematic innovative technology investing, or just kind of the way we approach thematic. So we're going to cover all 3 of those really quickly. This is a chart of Italy is in green. This is you guys. Poland, France, Netherlands, and England. Back to the 1400s, 55 to 75% of us would have all been farmers. Right? A few of us in here would have owned the farm, but all of us would have been owning the farm. My dad lived on a dairy farm, so I definitely would have been a farmer. I'm very glad that I'm not. It's now down to 12 or 4%. What happened? This is another interesting chart. This is a PhD project to show the turning points in human income going back to the year 0. It's actually flat. You can see there's only been 2 turning points in when us humans have made more money. The Industrial Revolution and the Tech Revolution. And now we think this is carried on by mobile tech and blockchain and internet. The reason why this is so important is until the advent of exponential technologies, you could only make more money if you could sell more apples, and you can only sell more apples if there are more people. So world income grows with population growth until somebody figures out how to farm more apples with less time. You'll see that. So Peter Diamandis, he's one of the world's 50 greatest leaders by Fortune magazine. He created this thing called the Xprize Foundation, which was the first private enterprise to go into outer space. And now he created a book called Abundance, which is a pan-sector review of exponential technologies. He said there are 6 Ds of exponential tech. So here's how we can identify them. Okay, first is digitized. Once something becomes free or digital, you have a free, perfect, and instant copy, i.e. infinite scalability. Right? Which is great if it's Flashpoint, the greatest Rolling Stones live concert of all time, or maybe Fast and the Furious movie collection. It might not be great if it's Sophia's money, which we'll talk about in a second. Deceptive. This helps us avoid, so real quick, this helps us avoid the first big pitfall of facing innovative tech, which is to be afraid. There's a group in the UK called the Luddites around the 1800s who were blowing up factories because they were afraid of the next level technology. I think we all agree it turned out okay. You're getting the same response now to robotics and AI. It's crazy, but one of the companies is literally called Skynet, for any of you Terminator fans. So deceptive. This is the second most important feature. Deceptive is that exponential technologies, if growing exponentially, they sneak up on you. Would you rather €1 million up front or a penny a day doubled for 31 days, which becomes more than 5 million euros? Right? Deceptive is a key element to exponential. It's also a very key element to understanding when you're buying companies that are huge, like Microsoft. I actually just had this conversation. Really, is blockchain providing any bottom line contribution to Microsoft? Well, it is actually. So blockchain and cloud are in Azure. Azure is growing 93% year over year. Microsoft's core business, Windows, is growing 19%, which is actually still pretty good. 19% versus 93%. It won't take that much time for that to deceptively grow. But still, you get people that go, really? That's just blockchain, JP Morgan? I know it was in the FT this morning, but is it really a big deal at the company? Well, if you think about it, would it have been a great idea to buy Apple the day they announced the iPod? When they announced the iPod, Steve Jobs had been fired and come back. He had done nothing but 2 kids movies in the meantime. Apple had done nothing since 1984 when they launched the Apple II. And yet it would have been the best time ever to buy Apple, even though the iPod at the moment was 0 at the bottom line. When they brought out the iPhone, much more risk-adjusted bet, I think this one was going to pay off. Again, when they launch it, 0 contribution to the bottom line. So we many times make investment decisions based on things that are 0 or very small parts of the bottom line because we expect deceptive growth. Disruptive, this is obvious. It changes the way you used to do things. You used to have to shovel fields, now you can just use a tractor. Dematerialized. So the best way to say this is things that used to be things are no longer things. Think of your smartphone, right? It's a phone, it's a calculator, it's a calendar, it's a social networking device, it's a television to watch 100 best goals on YouTube. It's a whole bunch of different things in one device, right? We'll get back to that in a second. Demonetized. It takes the money out of things. Think of how much it used to cost to be an avid photographer. Remember you'd buy those really expensive rolls of film, you'd get the higher quality, and then your daughter would take a picture of the floor for 45 times. You wouldn't even find out for 2 weeks because you'd have to go get it developed. Now you take 1,000 photos on your iPhone, you jump on the airplane, and by the time you're done, you've edited 50 pictures or so. At least that's my wife does. I watch movies. But if you put these two together, think of your house or your flat or your apartment. How much space used to be occupied by films, music, or photos? They're gone. And yet they're higher quality. Democratized. A Zulu warrior in Africa with a smartphone has more access to information than the President of the United States did in 2005. We don't need to talk about who the president was in 2005, but he has more access to information than he did. So that's kind of the point. Then you've got these 3 additional forces. We're just going to skip to this one. The combination of the internet, microfinance, and wireless communication is transforming poverty-stricken people into an emerging market force, both to sell things and to become powerful. They don't need banks and telephone wires. They can access the satellites. and do business with JP Morgan, HSBC, and banks here. So that's a key to identify an exponential tech. But you want to identify exponential techs that provide you the world's most scarce resource. If you do that, now you're really off to the races. And this helps to uncover the last third biggest pitfall to facing innovative technologies, which is time. Time is the most scarce resource because everyone has the same amount of it and it dissipates at the same rate every day no matter what you do. But time is a huge element. Now on one side it's easy to see. Women in Africa as of right now, September 25th, 2018, spend 40%, some of them, 40% of their life getting clean water. 40. I've got some right here. Many of you could have gotten some outside. So you can obviously see the incredible benefits to their society if we can just eliminate that completely, like we have here. You have no time to get clean water. 40% of their life. On the other end, it's a little bit harder to see next level steps. And so what happens is you fall into what we call first world problems. So try to explain Netflix or Amazon to your grandma. It's great, Grandma. I don't have to go to the store anymore. She's like, I like going to the store. I used to see my friends at the store. But the aggregation of saved time among the developed world that has the highest GDP per capita on the planet is hugely important. But it doesn't feel like it, and if you're trying to identify it, you're like, oh, that's not that big of a deal. It's a huge deal, and it's how you can identify the definition of prosperity from those exponential techs. And to give you that example, even Jay-Z knows this. The consummate philosopher says, if time is money, I need a loan. Billionaire rapper, so I think we should listen to him. Now, the way we've approached exponential techs, specifically a few of them, are rather than to try to pinpoint one or two of them that are going to work, it's to seek those that create the infrastructure for innovation. So in the same way that if you were to try to profit from the gold rush in San Francisco in the 1800s, you could be a gold miner. Not all the gold miners made money, but every gold miner needed a pickaxe. So there's a popular phrase of selling pickaxes to the miners is a risk-adjusted way to profit from next-level technologies. We completely agree. We view internet and blockchain technologies as these broad approaches of infrastructure, and then underneath that you're going to have specialized areas like cloud computing leverages the internet, right? Cybersecurity is needed because of the internet. So these are kind of concepts, but the internet and blockchain technologies are these broad-based infrastructures that have created an unbelievable opportunity set for us. Now, really quickly, because we have the first blockchain ETF in Europe, I think we get a lot of the following question. Cryptocurrencies, why are you buying cryptocurrencies? We are not buying cryptocurrencies. In the FT this morning is JP Morgan uses their blockchain system to adopt 75 additional banks like Banco Santander onto their system to work together to more speedily transact with other banks across Europe and across the world. We invest in enablers, those that create and allow the opportunity of blockchains to exist, and users of blockchain. That's that fund. But rather than that, we're just kind of take a quick side step to talk about how can you make money right now in cryptocurrencies. So that's not what we do, but I think it's of so much importance. Everybody loves talking about them. I think there's three ways to do it. One, you can buy and sell them. Good luck. We think you're probably going to lose unless you really know what you're doing, and happy to admit that it's possible at this point that people know way more than everybody else because it's so new. But it really seems like throw darts at the wall. Second, you can mine them. As of The Economist a couple weeks ago, if you mine a Bitcoin transaction, you get $80,000. So that'd be 65,000 euros. That's nice. In order to mine them, though, you have to go buy a massive amount of computer power, spend a lot of money up front, and then kind of cross your fingers because it's just a race to solve known equations, right? So that's not a great risk-adjusted way to make money. You want to know the best risk-adjusted way to make money? Is to sell chips to those miners. Miners make money up and down. They make money if Bitcoin rises or falls in value, kind of like stock traders. but they need the chips. So you want to know which company is doing the best right now in the blockchain world? AMD. That company is on fire. So is NVIDIA. So is Taiwan Semiconductor and Intel. Companies that are making chips that the miners have to have. So if you're going to invest risk-adjusted in the cryptocurrency market, we think that's the best way, because in the history of our industry, we've used pickaxes to the miners all the time. We talk about it in our energy infrastructure play, because we sell a pipeline strategy. Rather than picking pockets of oil that are going to be profitable, we just say they're going to need our pipes. It's like selling pickaxes to the miners. Right now you can sell chips to the miners. You can go look at those chip companies. They are just off the charts. And the chips, again, are kind of broad level infrastructure. So NVIDIA is the chip that's inside every Tesla car. So it's not just a blockchain play. You're getting pretty much every next level innovative technology requires more and more and more and greater computing power. Right? Every time they release the iPhone, it's a new chip, and they're making it themselves. So how do you make money, and is it possible to make money in thematic investing? Well, we think it is, and we think the next level of robo-advice will be to start providing advice inside of thematics. Because I've always been a believer that greater than the S&P 500 or the Italian stock exchange or the FTSE 100, rather than them kind of making sense of where should I allocate for next year, it's about underlying themes. The internet has obviously been the dominant theme over the last 10 years. And so we'll show you why thematic investing makes more sense than maybe regional investing, or at least a complement. Thematic investing unlocks your geographic and sectoral boundaries, right? So if your model says 12% in the US, we think it should be 18, but no, that's not what we're talking about today. If it says to be in the US, you go buy the S&P 500. What do you get with the S&P 500? All the good companies and all the bad companies. And you get all the sectors. Or if you're running a sector strategy, we think rising interest rates is going to benefit banks, I'm going to buy banks. So you're going to buy a European bank ETF. You know what you get with that? All of the banks, the good ones and the bad ones. Usually that can work, but we can show you that a theme can be even more precise. Thematic investing allows the investment professionals, you, to have a tool to better express your true investment beliefs. Okay, so let's see how this works. So the Dow Jones Internet Index. Do you get more than 50% of your revenues online? Are they generated online? Then you go onto the spreadsheet, and if you're one of the 40 largest and most liquid, you go into the portfolio with a 10% cap on any side, big companies. What did that end up doing? Well, an index that was created when Mark Zuckerberg was in high school, Google was a privately owned company, Netflix was not a company yet, and Amazon had just IPO'd as a bookstore. This led you to the ETF with the largest allocation of FANGs in the world. Facebook, Amazon, Netflix, and Google was not the idea of this index, but it became that because of the underlying investment objective was the internet is the driving force. Those that generate their money online will be an incredible force to be reckoned with. Amazon and Netflix are not tech stocks. Everybody gets this wrong. I get it, it's easier to say, but every day on Bloomberg and CNBC and all of the media outlets, The Economist, every week, FANGs, the popular tech trade of Facebook, Amazon, Netflix, and Google, or Facebook, Apple, Amazon, Netflix, and Google, they get it wrong. And I know so many people, retail people, who need your advice, who have been buying the tech index ETF, thinking they've got these stocks, and they do not. And in the short run, I think this is my biggest bull. I'll tell you why in a second. And this is a short run bull, and this is my biggest long run bull at the moment. And the market knows that. Their PEs, forward PEs are 84 and 80. These guys' forward PEs are 26 and 28. 26. Facebook. By the way, FANGs released all their earnings 3 weeks ago. Anybody in here want to guess which FANG stock had the biggest loss on its earnings day? Facebook. Biggest wipeout of shareholder wealth in history. Markets, all-time highs. Biggest loss of shareholder wealth in history. Which FANG stock reported the highest sales growth? Anyone want to guess? Amazon. You would think it was Amazon. Facebook. 42%. 26, 39, and 28. 26 forward PE, 42% sales growth, because they're forecasting margins are going to come all the way down to 33%. So how did this work, right? This is the history of the Dow Jones Internet Index. You can see after the unclassified stocks got classified, it's basically 2/3 technology. But it's never been all technology like you would have thought so in the beginning, right? You can see here it's been 20% financials and consumer discretionary from the beginning, and now 25%. And this is essentially almost all Facebook or Amazon and Netflix, this consumer discretionary bucket. Well, how did that do? Well, real quickly, you've got 20-year period, not even since the beginning, just a 20-year rolling period, which captures most of the peak of the tech bubble. The all world, all country, which includes the emerging markets, was up 238. The S&P was up 318. Tech stocks was up 420. So you were right. Internet's going to be a big thing. I'm going to buy a tech index. But guess what? Consumer discretionary stocks were up another 100%, 520. But if you had properly identified the right theme, the Dow Jones Internet Index was up 1,230%. That includes the drop in 2000, 2001, and in 2008, outperforming the S&P by 600 basis points a year. In the last 10 years, through the crisis, again, the all-world index up 70, the S&P double that, the tech index up 250, right again, but discretionary wins yet again at 275. And here the Dow Jones Internet, yet again, 465 to 139 over the S&P. In what I've seen is probably going to be the hardest decade ever to beat the S&P 500, this index, passive index, beat the S&P by over 900 basis points a year for 10 years. What was the original thesis of the internet? That you would have massive revenues with incredibly high profit margins, because you could be everywhere in the world without a box retail store everywhere, right? Guess what? That happened. Facebook has gonna shrink to a 33 margin. Google's margins are 60%. But we assume thematic investing, the biggest theme we know of is the internet stocks, .coms, bankruptcy. Investing in the internet, not bankruptcy. Done? Excellent. So thank you very much. Really appreciate your time.